Hello, algebra students. Here's a quick review video on domain and range, and I'll also include interval notation in it. Okay, so domain, remember the definition of domain is the set of all possible inputs, and the range is the set of all possible outputs. So if I'm looking at this graph here, and remember that these parabolas, these quadratic graphs, would go forever, right? They'd have arrowheads on them. I did it on Desmos. Okay, so the domain would be anything that x is allowed to be. And as I look at this graph, I can see clearly that x can be 0, x can be 2, x could be 3, x could even be 4, 5, or 6 because this parabola is going to get wider and wider and wider, right? And then the same is true on the negative side of 0. It's just going to keep getting wider and wider and wider. And so therefore, every possible x can be input to the equation. So my domain is going to be all real numbers. Okay. Now my range is going to be the outputs. So with range, I'm talking y values. Well, look, y could be 0, couldn't it? Yeah, right on the x-axis, y is 0 right here and right here, right? Y could be 1 or 2 or 4, and it can be, a billion because it's going to go up and up and up. But when I look below 0, I notice that the lowest point on the parabola is -2. Y cannot be -3. Down here, the parabola does not touch -3, does it? It doesn't touch -4 or -5. So the range is going to be all real numbers such that, and it depends if we're in function notation or just y. I'll do function notation. F of x, that's my y values, right, have to be greater than or equal to -2 because there is no y value or output value less than -2. -2 is the smallest possible y value. So my domain is all real numbers. My range is all real numbers such that the outputs are greater than or equal to -2. All right. Why don't you try this one on your own? Find me the domain and find me the range. Go ahead and pause the video. If you haven't tried it yet, pause the video. I'm going to start explaining now. All right. So my domain, it looks like my domain can be any positive number. Look at that. I'm already up to 35 right here. And yeah, it's going to go up and hit the graph, right? And in this parabola, it's just going to keep going forever. So x is clearly going to be any large positive. That's fine. X can be 0. X can be some of the negatives. But look right here. I think that number is -6. If I look, -5, -6, -7, 8, 9, -10. Yeah, that's -6. I don't see the parabola touch any value lower than -6. So my domain in this case is going to be all real numbers such that, and since we're talking input, we're talking about x values, and the x values are all greater than or equal to -6. Now my range is going to be about the outputs or the y values. And I see that I can have, like 3.5 and -3.5. But this parabola appears to be getting wider as it opens to the right. And in fact, it will. The top one will keep going up, 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 up. And the bottom one will go down, 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 down. And this thing will get wider and wider and wider, eventually incorporating any y value that I want to consider. So the range is going to be all real numbers. Okay? Now, I'm going to talk about domain and range while I do interval notation. First, go ahead and solve this absolute value inequality, okay? All right, I'm getting ready to solve it. I hope you have already. If you haven't, please pause the video and do it. I'm going to write down x minus 5 is less than 3, and x minus 5 is greater than -3. Okay, so I'm going to solve and add 5 to both sides. And I'm going to get x is less than 8 and add 5 to both sides. X is going to be greater than 2. Okay. Now with these, we always like to do a number line, right? So let me get a number line going here. And I'm going to show 2. And I'm going to show, oops, I'm showing that in the wrong place, aren't I? Excuse me. I was thinking I had a negative somewhere in there, but I don't. So I'm going to show 2 over here. I'm going to show 8. And they're both going to be open points because neither one is a solution to the inequality. And I'm going to shade in between because it's an and, right? Now, this is where I like to do my interval notation. So I'm going to look here. All my solutions have to be between 2 and 8, non-inclusive. So my interval is going to go from 2 to 8, but they're going to be the open brackets because neither 2 nor 8 is included. That's interval notation. That means all the numbers from 2 to 8. Okay? Oops. Now, dropping down here to this problem. There's a compound inequality, so why don't you go ahead and solve that. See if you can write the interval notation yourself. Again, I suggest you do the number line graph first. I think it'll make it easier. Okay, here comes my solution. So first I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I'm going to get 2x, and that's going to be less than or equal to 0. And then I'm going to divide by 2, and therefore x is going to be less than or equal to 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. All right, where's my pen? All right, we're going to add 5 to both sides. And I'm going to get 3x. It's going to be greater than 15. I'm going to divide by 3. By 3, and I'm going to get x is greater than 5. So my solution is x is less than or equal to 0, or x is greater than 5. So I'm going to go graph this on a number line. Okay, so let me see here. I've got to show 0. I've got to show 5. And let's see, I'm going to need the numbers greater than 5, not including 5. And then I'm going to get the numbers less than or equal to 0. That does include 0, and they're going to go that way. Okay, now here the interval is a little bit different than the previous one. The right-hand side over here by the 5 is pretty easy. I'm going to go from 5, and the numbers are just going to get larger and larger as they approach infinity. Now the 5's not included, and since infinity is not a number, I can't include it either. Okay? I'm going to put an or in there. By the way, if you watch the video on unions or intersections, you could put a union symbol there if you like. Yeah, you could do that instead of the or because they mean the same thing. Now in this one, I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to end at 0. Where did I begin? Well, I don't really have a beginning, but I came from the negative infinity direction. Now, infinity can never be included, so it's an open bracket. But 0 is included because of the closed point, so I use the closed bracket. And there is interval notation. All right, I think that's it for the video. Hopefully that helps you. Again, you can go on to Khan Academy. You can do a search under one of those. You could go to Math Excel and do some of the study plans. All right, Mr. Lawrence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.